Lieber, bro, and welcome to the Dark Shadows podcast. Well, today, just like the, last podcast, me and CJ me and him were talking about Siren Head. This time, we are gonna be talking about Slender Man. But about that, I got the story right here of Slender Man right now, and I'm gonna read it here. This is published on January 14th, 2010. Slender Man, written by Anonymous, and there you go. Let's start this. After waking up with a jolt, the girl laid in bed a few seconds longer. Reaching over to switch on her bedside lamp, she tried to remember exactly what had stolen her sweet slumber away. When she couldn't, the brunette swung her legs over the side of the bed and heaved herself up. Checking the time on her phone, she snorted when she saw it was midnight, the witching hour. Knowing that sleep would only invade her, she left her bedroom for the kitchen, a good cup of coffee on her mind. As she passed by her front door, a chill spread like liquid fired down her spine. It's only winter, she told herself, focusing again on the coffee plan, measuring out scoops, water, and preparing her cup kept her occupied. But as the dark liquid boiled, she had nothing left to keep her mind from wandering off. The chill returned, and she couldn't help but glance behind her to the front door. It stood there instantly enough, just like always. The dead bolt was still in place, and she could see nothing amiss with it. Turning back to her coffee, she did her best to forget about the feeling. With her cup in hand, she started back towards her room. As she walked by the front door, she decided that a quick glance out of the peephole would help calm her restless mind. The chill worsened with each step she took towards the door and further away from the safety and warmth of her blankets. She pressed her empty hand against the cold metal door and took a deep breath before leading her eye to the peephole. At first, she could only see an inky blackness and somehow seemed to swirl in itself. When she blinked in surprise, the void melted away. She wished it hadn't. In its place, there stood what she could only guess was once a man. The limbs were long and inhumanly awkward, with bulky joints branching off into several arms, not unlike the branches of a tree. The creature was draped in a black suit, somehow making the thing more nightmarish to her. The icing on her proverbial cake, however, was that passed as the hellish thing's on face. It was as though her mind blurred the ghastly visage to spare itself further shock and horror. She shoved herself away from the door with the hand still pressed against it. The scalding mug of coffee fell, the liquid burning her bare legs as she fell backwards and tried to crawl away from the door. She knew, somehow, that her mind hadn't been playing tricks on her. As she crab walked away from the door, she watched as tendrils as black as the void she first saw snake around through the cracks. The girl was trapped between the instinct to flee and the gut feeling to not turn her back on the door. When the door jolted, the urge to flee overcame her, and she slipped in the burning liquid as she tried to make it back to her room. She knew deep down that she was trapping herself in a corner, but she had to get away from the door. The girl was halfway down the hallway when she heard the previously locked door creak open. She screamed and slipped into the wall, cracking her chin on it and stunning her. After that, there was only blackness. Nicole, a warm male face, snapped the woman out of her trance. As she turned around, she was met by one of her sister's doctors. She nodded, not sure if she'd say anything, or even if she could find her voice, if she have something else to say. That morning, she had gotten an urgent phone call from the hospital saying that her sister, Lindsay, was there. Before they had even let her see her, the doctors had pulled her off to the side and insisted that they talk to her about what might have happened. Phrases like self-inflicted and assault had been thrown around, and Nicole felt her mind reel. She still hadn't fully understood what they had been saying until she saw Lindsay with her own eyes. Her little sister had a bandage wrapped around her head, covering both of her ears as well as her eyes. They said it was to keep her now deadened eyes from drying out and to try to keep infection out of the wounds Lindsay had made to her ears. The doctors had guessed that either she or someone else had jammed a pencil into them to keep her off balance or to deafen herself against something. There was the mix of first and second degree burns on her hands, legs, and feet from what was assumed to be the coffee of her neighbors found slipped all over the entry to her apartment. As Nicole walked into her sister's hospital room the first time, she thought she had spied the silhouette of a man in the window that she knew was impossible. Her sister's room was on the third story of the hospital. And there we go. So, about that, how did you think of it?
I felt like I was going to go to sleep. Scary stories make me tired.
Okay. Well, that's usually Slender Man, but for you, do you have anything to say about Slender Man?
No.
You don't?
No, I forgot what I was going to say anyway, because I'm about to fall asleep.
Well, it says here that, this is his behavior of Slender Man. The Slender Man is being male in appearance, who looks like a man with extremely long, slender arms and legs. And he also appears to have 4 to 8 long black tentacles that protrude from his back. Through different photographs and enthusiasts disagree on this fact, and therefore it is theorized he can contract these tentacles as well. He is described as wearing a black suit strikingly similar to the visage of the notorious Men in Black, and as the name suggests, appears very thin and able to stretch his limbs and torso to inhuman lengths in order to induce fear and ensnare its prey. Once his arms are outstretched, his victims are put into something of a hypnotized state where they are utterly helpless to stop themselves from walking into them. He is also able to create tendrils from his fingers and back that he uses to walk on in a similar fashion to Dr. Octopus. The superhuman stretching ability could also be seen as a similarity between himself and Mr. Fantastic. Whether he absorbs, kills, or merely takes his victims to an undisclosed location or dimension, he is also unknown, as there are never any bodies of evidence left behind in his wake. To deduce a definite conclusion. His face is pale and slightly ghostly, and almost appears to have been wrapped in a type of gauze or cloth. his facial features are also an object of debate, and many people believe that his face looks like different to each person if it is seen at all. He sometimes is portrayed wears a hat. Wait, what? Slenderman wears a hat. Okay, I did not know that. Which is sometimes a bowler, a fedora, or sometimes a top hat. He may also seen wearing a long, flowing necktie or scarf, which is either red or gray. He often keeps his long, pale hands crossed politely behind his back or hanging loosely at his sides. His suit is black, sometimes portrayed as pinstripe and artwork. A common misconception thanks to the very similar Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas. He has long coattails, which he lets flow proudly. He wears long dress shoes, which are always shined a perfect gleaming black. Well, that's his appearance mostly. The last thing I'm gonna talk about is his appearance. Oh, no, not that. His probably behavior. Wait,
Didn't you already talk about his behavior?
Actually, I've talked about his appearance. Oh, well, let's do it. Well, this is his behavior. Much of the fascination with Slenderman is rooted in the overall aura of mystery that he is wrapped in. But despite the fact that it is rumored he kills children almost exclusively, it is difficult to say whether or not his only objective is slaughter. Oftentimes, it is either reported or recorded that he can be found in sections of woods, and these generally tend to be suburban. He also has been reported seen with large groups of children, as many photographs portray. It is commonly thought that he resides in woods and forests and preys on children. He seems unconcerned with being exposed in the daylight or captured in photos. It is often thought as well that he enjoys stalking people or who become overly paranoid about his existence, purposely giving them glimpses of himself in order to further frighten them. For this reason, it seems like Slenderman very much enjoys physicology, torturing his victims. He also often appears to float or drift around rather than to walk, which suggests the possibility of him being a ethereal being rather than a creature or a man. This would also explain why he is able to remain mobile in spite of his poorly proportioned body. Even though Slenderman was fabricated on something awful forums, some people have already claimed sightings. He is seen mostly at night, peering into open windows and walks out in front of lone motorists and secluded roads. His main intentions appear to be kidnapping children, as when he is seen near them in photographs, they usually disappear shortly afterwards. The Slenderman has also inspired many stories, such as those of Mabel Hornets. In the end, though, his purpose remains unknown. An interesting take on Slenderman. Okay, I don't have to, read that. Well, lastly, do you have any thoughts about Slenderman? About that?
No.
Okay. Well, guys, that is the end of the podcast. So, bye, everybody, and peace out.